Hey my loves, it's your girl Stripe back on the Get a Gaming channel. And before I get into what we're going to be talking about today, I just want to thank you guys so much for the love and support that I've been receiving from you guys. You guys are such beautiful people, and I love meeting and talking to you guys. For this month, my goal was to have 50 subscribers before the end of this month, and you guys have shown me so much love and support for my goal, and we've actually hit it before we've hit the end of the month. I want to thank you guys so much. It still amazes me how I have people who genuinely want to watch and listen to my annoying voice. But anyway, let's get into today's story. So today we're going to be making a Peter Pan. So I'm going to be talking about the original story, and then I actually made up a story for Peter Pan and his wife and his child. I'll let you guys know more about that coming more to the end of this video. But I really couldn't decide whether I wanted to play with these characters or not. But when I was taking like my thumbnail pictures, I was like, no, this family is so adorable. I cannot play with it. So let me know if you want me to make a video on it. But I think what I'm going to do is just play with it personally and put screenshots and just updates on my YouTube community. But definitely hit the subscribe button and like so you can actually see and get notifications also when I put out either a new video, a new shorts, or even just a new community post so you can stay up with it. So let's get into today's story. So where I've gotten this original story, I'm gonna link the link for where I got the story from. I'm not gonna lie guys, I don't really know the story of Peter Pan that well. I think I watched the movie ages ago, if I even watched the movie, that's the thing. So bear with me, I'm just gonna like proofread the story in my own words. So basically, there were these three kids that lived in London with their parents. Their names were Wendy, John, and Michael Darlin. So one night, Wendy woke up and there was a boy on the floor. Now, to be fair, that is wild. Imagine literally waking up in the middle of the night and seeing a boy on the floor and you don't know who it is. Like, Wendy really should have called her parents. Like, he could have been an attacker. But anyway, who am I to judge? Okay, this is fiction. But Wendy was basically like, who are you and why are you in my room? And like, why are you upset? She really should have asked more questions, but Homegirl was doing what she does, okay? And he was like, okay, my name's Peter Pan, and I'm upset because my shadow won't stick to me. So Wendy was like, oh, okay, really? I'm gonna help this stranger, even though I don't know what they do, how they got into my house. I don't know what's going on with them, but I'm just gonna help them. Because to be fair, that is a good kidnapped child mindset. I've been watching a lot of these like documents about like these children and these people getting kidnapped, and the way that they make it out is like by being nicer to the kidnapper. I was going to say kidnappee, but it's a kidnapper. So I guess Wendy, she kind of knew what she was doing. So she sewed Peter's shadow to the tip of his shoes, and Peter was hella happy. So he was like, I'm going to Neverland with my fairy Tinkerbell. Are you coming with me? Like, you could be our mother and take care of us. Now that is screaming major red flags. Like, I feel like I haven't actually watched this film or read the story because everything here is a screaming like you're not going home. So Wendy, instead of asking or like saying no, let me check with my mom, she was like, okay, but you need to teach me how to fly. So Peter was like, okay, I'll teach you to fly. So she woke up her brothers and said, if you teach us to fly, we'll go with you to Netherland. Now, at least she had the sense to like wake her brothers up so she won't be alone. And all the children, they began to fly and they followed golden arrows that were just apparently flying in the sky and showed them the way to Netherland. So Peter Pan basically explained that they were the lost boys live with Tinkerbell and me, I'm their captain. Now I don't know if you guys have watched Once Upon a Time, but if you guys haven't, I would say it's for more mature audiences. If you're like 12 plus, you can be younger and watch it. But To be fair, it's I would say be a little bit older if you're gonna watch Once Upon a Time. That show is amazing. The plot twist, the way everyone is connected is crazy. And it just makes me think about who Peter Pan is in that show. But if you guys haven't watched it, I'm not gonna spoil it even though it's amazing. But if you guys have watched Once Upon a Time, please show me some love and comment down in the comments so I can just fangirl about it with you guys. So Peter basically showed them around saying that the mermaids live over there, the lagoon is there where they live, and they're pirates too, and their boss is Captain Hook. Now Wendy was like, pirates? I did not sign up to that. But Michael and John, for some reason, they didn't say anything and they were like, no, we want to see the pirate straight away. Now Peter was like, Hook is the meanest pirate ever, but he's frightened of crocodiles, which is understandable. Like, you can't mock him for his fear. So apparently, crocodiles had bit Hook's hands off ages ago, and it liked the taste. So the crocodiles always would follow Hook and look for more of him. So Peter took Wendy and John and Michael to the house in the woods, and they went into a secret door. Now, when the Lost Boys saw Wendy, they shouted, "Will you be our mother?" Now that is raising very like loads of red flags because I swear Wendy's meant to be a child. And yes, it says in the story, she literally said, "I'm only a little girl." Okay, she has some sense. Now the Lost Boys looked sad and they were like, all right. No, she was convinced. No, that's actually so bad. She was convinced that she'll be their mother. So at nighttime, Wendy would tuck the boys into bed and she would read them a little story. Now one day, as they were there, so I don't know how many days they were in this island and why their parents weren't looking for them, but the pirates came and Peter was like, okay, everyone needs to hide and get away. So the pirates had apparently tied up the Indian princess Tiger Lily on a rock. Now I don't know if this is meant to be Native American or what. I am literally reading the story and paraphrasing, so I'm sorry if I have offended you, but it's not me, okay? And there was a voice that sounded like Captain Hook's that said, you need to set her free. But the pirates were like, you're the one that told us to bring her here. Apparently, it was actually Peter Pan. Now, Peter Pan had actually tricked the pirates into setting her free. So that night, Wendy was telling the Lost Boys a story about how there were three children who left their parents and flew to Neverland, but never got to see their parents again because they missed them. Basically, she was like, hint, hint, I want to go home. And basically, Peter Pan had finally been convinced by Wendy, John, and Michael to take them home and to see her parents. Now, I don't know what the moral of that story is. Normally, kids' stories have like some sort of moral where they basically say that, like, oh yeah, doing this will make you a good person. This story basically teaches us to trust strangers, and to run away from our parents and don't tell our parents anything, to basically be closed off. Like, I'm not seeing a good, like, I'm not seeing an upside to this story. It's not a very teachable story, but you know what? Vibes. I know I know a new one is coming out with Yara Shadi. I'm kind of here for it. The representation and all of that. Personally, like The Little Mermaid, I think it's really cool, but at the same time, it kind of scares me how like they made the crab so realistic and stuff like that. Sometimes I'm just like, it was kind of fine like a cartoon. This is kind of traumatizing, but anyway, that's just my personal opinion that I'm entitled to. You guys, let me know how you feel about these live action Disney films and which one you'd want to see next. Because we are on the Ghetto Gaming channel, you know, I can just leave you with a boring, plain old story about kidnapping. So I'm gonna tell you my version of this story, what my story of these Sims are. So basically, Peter Pan was in the foster system. Now his dad, no one knows what happened to his mum. I didn't really come up with a story about his mother because this is all from my brain currently. His dad was Captain Hook. He was not quite right. I'm not quite sure if he was an alcoholic or he was just a bit erratic, but he was Peter Pan had to be put into the foster system. Now, sometimes Captain Hook will come back and check on Peter. He would make sure Peter's all right. He would do all these things for Peter, but Peter would always still end up in the foster system. So he kind of learned to be like isolated, a little bit of the weirdo, the kid in a corner. So he ended up in the Darling's house with Wendy, John, and Michael. Now, Peter Pan, he was like basically the isolated weirdo. He would always be in a corner, like talking to himself. The parents, the Darling parents, were literally so worried about Peter because of his habits were not healthy whatsoever. He wasn't really connecting with the other boys. The other boys would like kind of tease Peter, but Wendy would be like, "Oh no, don't tease him." She would basically stand up for him. So let's fast forward to all the cheesy movie stuff and get to where Wendy and Peter Pan becomes friends. So now Peter, fast forward like I want to say 2 months later, Peter becomes more open, especially with Wendy. The Darlings see that he's finally opening up and he's finally allowing himself to be a proper child. Now, Peter actually expresses to Wendy that he is, in fact, a wizard. Okay, so he then finally tells the Darlings, and they're like, "Oh my gosh! Like you can do Inferno, like you can do loads of spells. Like oh my gosh, that's so cool." And him and Wendy just started to have a real tight connection. Now, I want to say they are children. Yes, they are children. So now, when it comes to the teenage years, begin to date. Now, Hook was seeing that Peter was just becoming too happy, and being the toxic parent that he was just like, mm-mm, this is not about to happen. So he started to like sneak into the house at night. He used to like place weird stuff. I want to say like rats, just to basically when the social worker Tiger Lily would come to the house just to check that everything was going right. Basically she would like put marks in her little notebook saying, okay, this is not quite a fit bit for Peter. Now, finally, Hook, when everything was in place for Hook, he was like, I am a fit parent now and I want Peter back. When he wasn't a fit parent, he just was jealous that Peter was happy and he wasn't. I want to say because Peter looked like his mum, but we don't have a story for Peter's mum, so I'm just going to keep quiet on that. Hook came back to no Peter Pan came back to live with his dad. Now he was still dating Wendy at the time, so he would sneak out to still go and see Wendy. Hook was becoming more increasingly abusive towards Peter, and it just was too much for Peter. So Peter, because he was a teenager, he kept like trying to talk to his social worker, Princess Tiger Lily, on the side, saying, "Girl, I want to go back to the Darlings." Now, Hook was getting extremely mad at this, and he would get even madder when he would see Peter and Wendy together doing their thing, and he basically forbid Peter to see Wendy ever again. Now Peter was like, hell no, I'm a wizard, I'm not gonna take this from you, and he eventually was able to move back into the Darlings household. Now Hook was not having this. He was not having this. The court said that Peter had to stay in the Darling's household. Wendy actually found out that she was pregnant with Peter's baby. And she gave birth. They were a beautiful, happy family. They were starting to look for their home. And this was the line for Hook. Hook was like, we are not having this. We are not having this, okay? So what Hook did was one day he snuck into the house and he lit the house on fire. Now this was after Wendy had a baby Tinker. So during that fire, Wendy was obviously in the house, and unfortunately or fortunately, Peter wasn't in the house, but also baby Tinker was in the house as well. I want to say Peter was at work, and Hook had obviously thought that Peter was in the house, and Tinker was just a little baby, and the house was on fire. This caused the whole Darling family to literally burn down because they didn't have their own house. Everybody was in the house. So Michael, John, Mr. and Mrs. Darling, they all burned down to the crisp. Same with Wendy as well because she was in the house. Now, Wendy was able to protect baby Tinker away from the flames, so she was at baby Tinker was quite well. So currently now with the Sims, we have Wendy. She is currently dead, but because of Peter's wizardy, okay, no, that's not a word. Because of Peter's magical powers, he was able to keep her stuck between, like, he was able to keep her presence as a ghost. So if you guys haven't noticed, I've actually made the relationship between Tinker and Wendy quite weak. They're quite distant, whilst the relationship with Peter and Wendy are quite close, and Peter with Tinker quite close. Now I did that because Tinker was a baby when her mum died, so she still would like be able to make a connection with her mum because her mum is a ghost, but at the same time her mum isn't like really present, so it's hard to create a relationship with a ghost, if that makes sense. Anyway, I want to thank you guys so much once again for all of your love and support. You guys really mean the world to me. Let me know how well I made these Sims. Love you guys. Bye.